Hi, everybody. My name is Luka. I'm one of the co-founders of Penta. For those of you that don't know, we're building a digital bank account for startups and businesses in Germany. This presentation was actually built by one of our product managers, Kat, who couldn't be here today. So I'm actually the head of growth, so I'm actually not involved in product. But being a founder, I do kind of run around the company a bit. So I do have a good perspective of what we're doing in product. And today I'm actually going to speak about some of the failings and learnings that we've had building Penta. And by the way, does everybody hear me okay? Is the mic working? Yeah. So I also write for the New York Observer. I wrote one article called How to Destroy Your Startup in 15 Easy Steps. So I'm often writing about these failings. Another one I wrote is called I Slept with 65 VCs and Learned These Things. So I'm constantly speaking about these different types of failings, and I think that's where people learn the most. I'm going to try to keep this relatively short, maybe 5 to 10 minutes, so we leave some time for questions, because I think that's where you guys can get the most benefit from this. So today I'm going to speak specifically about our onboarding. And as you guys know, that's probably one of the most crucial parts of any product. I mean, that's essentially the funnel where you convert people into customers. So here I go. So essentially, why it's so important. So there are plenty of fintechs now which are super easy to get a bank account. You know, number 26, open a bank account in 8 minutes. And it's essentially one of the parts that fintechs have transformed to make it really easy. And it's one of the key differences actually between banks and fintechs, right? And however, there's not one onboarding solution that fits everybody. There's not like one onboarding works for N26, Contest, Penta, and everybody else. So it's really trying to find this one middle ground which works for you in terms of compliance, regulation, and of course the business model. It's also the first time that the user gets a feel of the experience of the product. You know, it's the first time they kind of interact and speak to you, right? In some way at least. So it's important to have a good impression right there. That's why it's important essentially to set the scene. It's also all about the numbers, right? Startups live and die by the numbers. So every inch of conversion massively helps, and especially at scale. You know, if you increase conversion by 0.1%, if you're getting 100,000 people in the funnel, it makes a huge difference. And lastly, it's a fintech jungle. There's a lot of us. It may not seem like a lot of us. Realistically, there's maybe 5, 6 of us in Germany, maybe 10 of us in Europe. But it's an exploding industry because the barrier to entry is really dropping, especially from guys like Solaris Bank, which, if you guys are not aware of, is basically a tech company with a banking license, right? They power guys like Penta or even Contest. And so it's really about kind of making a difference in that end. So our product manager, Kat, has picked a few learnings that I'll show examples of from the Penta onboarding to give you guys an idea of what we've learned. So number one, it's not a race to the finish line. So getting customers over the finish line as fast as you can expect is something that people expect, and all the journeys which are expected are slick, they look cute, they look nice, and it's essentially full of emojis, and it's easy to use, right? But we realized that if you put more effort up front to actually think of some of the things that are happening, or even ask the users to do a few more things, that it actually helps in the long run. And our major problem at Penta, for example, was incomplete data. So we've designed this super slick onboarding. It's like, open a business bank account in 8 minutes. That's almost impossible, right? And people were just zooming through it, and in the end, we'd had like a pile of customer support queries. Our customer support team was swamped right when we released because there was incomplete data. People didn't upload documents. People didn't tell us about the shareholders, the legal representatives, or the managing directors. It was quite a nightmare. So what we essentially had to do was, or am I jumping? Yeah, and essentially that meant that we couldn't hold that promise of open a business bank account really quickly. And so what we wanted to do was change that a bit, which I'm going to show you right now. Yes. So this was a screen that we previously had, and which I'll get into a bit. So one of the slides I have, it's not beautiful, but it works. So this one specifically was the result of one of our experiments. Previous to this, we didn't have this yes and no stuff. We just had tick boxes. It was like, is this what you want to do? Yes, it is. No, it's not. Tick it and just move on, right? And now we actually force the user to say, are you a managing director or a legal representative? Yes or no, right? And that essentially cut down our customer support queries by, I think, 80%, which is a massive difference, right? And It still wasn't perfect, and we added actually intercom as well, right in the onboarding flow where people can directly chat with us. So some of the things that we're not seeing from the customer support side, which was like missing documents or like, what the hell is this? We actually saw from intercom where people just directly chatted with us, and essentially we encouraged them to chat with us, right? So this is something that we're working on in the background. This is, I'd say, let's say a wireframe 2.0, right? And this is meant for a big redesign, because now what we've done is we've collected all the shit things that we've did, put in an Excel file, and really thought about how can we fix that, right? And this may seem a bit counterintuitive for you product designers and product managers out there, but sometimes you need to make the user stop a little bit and think, and even if you make the process a little longer, if you educate them, then education essentially turns into them finishing the process quicker and increasing conversion rates. Because especially with business banking, I don't know, how many of you guys actually have a business or have opened a business bank account? Not a freelance account. So the two of you right there, I'm sure you know how complex it can actually be to open up a business bank account. It can take actually several weeks, including identifying all the relevant shareholders, handing in your articles of association. It can really be a nightmare. So what we're trying to do here essentially is really educate people like legal representative. This is all fintech mumbo jumbo, right? Compliance, KYC, KYB, for those of you that know. This is an everyday popping up topic. And what we're trying to do here is just kind of simplify this and kind of break it down, make it really friendly and simple. And like I said earlier, it's not beautiful, and we're aware of that, and our lead designer would actually kill us. But I mean, it works, right? And so this is another screen which is absolutely terrible, and it's quite even embarrassing to show it, because it's quite shit, very honestly. And it's an MVP of one of the final stages of the onboarding. And so there are a few parts that we've added to kind of make this better. And actually, by adding some of these components here, we've actually improved the process. So yet again, we kept it ugly, but we kept it functional. And that essentially led to a lot of conversions, or better conversions, let's say. And so what we're doing here is, this is kind of like the, yet again, wireframe 2.0 compared to this image, right? So you have this thing, and then here it's something is a bit more intuitive, right? You also have this timeline going on to explain people kind of like where you are in the process. Don't worry, you're not going to get lost. You kind of show them where the end is, and it's a bit more intuitive to edit all this. We also did a lot of research within other apps to figure out when somebody's editing user permissions or different user things with when there's multiple people, how do they do that, right? So then essentially, copying is essentially the best thing to do. God gave you eyes, so plagiarize, right? And lastly, go the extra mile. So the final learning is more about the service design rather than the UX. So it's looking a little further for some of the problems that you could solve, but it doesn't really appear right in the front. And pinpointing where you can do that makes a huge difference, obviously. And one of the pain points that we found was the process of incorporating in Germany. So for the two of you that have incorporated, I don't know if you've incorporated in Germany, but for those of you who haven't, it can take 6 to 8 weeks, and you have to run around physically from the lawyer to the notary to the bank to here to there, and it's quite a nightmare, right? So how it looks like the old way, or even today if you're not using Penta, is you go to the notary, then you try to go to a bank like a Deutsche Bank, somebody boring like that. Then you go get your paperwork, you have to hand in your stuff to the Handelsregister, you have to wait another couple of weeks. It's a back and forth process that's quite annoying. And with us, and we made this press release a couple of weeks ago, you may have read it, probably not. But what we essentially do is, you go to the notary, you go to Penta, your bank account is up and running, send in the money, all within 48 hours, or 15 minutes of your time. We just have to do some background stuff for up to 48 hours, transfer the money, and that's it. After that, I mean, we essentially can't influence what's happening with the Handelsregister and German bureaucracy, but from the banking perspective, we've solved that, so it's nice and easy. And lastly, sorry. So this service has been around for about 1 month, the service for businesses in foundation or in Gründung. And what we also learned is that we noticed that when people are going through the funnel, they're selecting, am I a UG, am I a GmbH, or am I GmbH in Gründung, right? They had no idea. They were just kind of clicking through it, and then yet again, customer support hates us, everybody's really pissed off, nothing is really working well. So what we've decided to do actually is split the experience. if this is, let's say this is for freelancers, we're coming for you contest, and if this is for a business foundation, we'd completely split that, right? We're actually not planning to do freelancers, and that essentially also made a huge difference. And this is my last slide. So as you've seen our, let's say, MVP of the onboarding and some of the fuck-ups that we've made, which are essentially more functional, which is our goal in the beginning, than necessarily pretty. One of the biggest learnings that I can really take away from our team is that build something, get it out there, and really just have the users break it. We host UX testing sessions every 2 weeks at our office. Everybody's invited. And a lot of the times, there's feedback that's super helpful. But until you actually have it live and until it's being tested and kind of broken, then you can't actually learn anything from it. So it is helpful to get live UX testing on InVision or something like that, but it's crucial to actually speak to people. And yeah, that's about it. Thank you guys. I'm up for questions.